Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? This is your host, Tyler, and this is the fifth episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist podcast. Alright, so we've had a couple of interesting things that have been happening more recently. My main focus today is going to be on Master Duel, the most recent Remote Duel YCS we had, and talking a little bit about product that has been coming out more recently in Yu-Gi-Oh! And having a discussion around that. That's going to be my main focus for today, but we're going to delve into different things here and there for each of those topics. But in general, that's what we're going to be focusing on, and I hope you enjoy our discussion here today. I cannot seem to escape the Master Duel discussion, similarly to how I cannot escape the ban list discussion. And with Master Duel, it's such a interesting discussion because there's nothing to discuss. In a more literal sense, there's just not really anything going on with Master Duel currently. We have our third season, or whatever you want to call it. This third like little cycle of going through things, and like having our like placements reset and then trying to grind back up to platinum. You know, we're I really don't know what Konami is like doing or planning for the future of this game, but I really hope whatever it is that they're going to be doing it soon because it is becoming a very, very egregious thing to try to like want to play it. And don't get me wrong, like Master Duel is still very fun at like its fundamental core, but in general, it's not it's not fun to have like no incentive to go into the game. And I think I mentioned this before, like there's to the credit of people that they're talking about in like a statistical term, like there is plenty of things to do with Master Duel. There's still plenty of things you can do in Master Duel and have the ability to do in Master Duel upon like first getting the game. But it's more so about like how many things you have that you can deviate your time from. Like basically when you first start up Master Duel, it's solo mode and then going into ranked mode. And then I guess if you want to do friendly duels as well, but that's just kind of like its own little thing that you can I mean, I guess some people do it a little more often, but in comparison, that's just something that's kind of like more of a here and there kind of thing, I would say, for most people. Like, most people are wanting to play this to grind out for themselves. And with that, like, they're going to be going into the game and wanting to do, like, different things in order to, like, get gems, rewards, or whatever it is. And just to be able to have a reason and incentive to play the game. And that's currently not available for us. We do not have that ability right right now at all. Like we had the XYZ event that ended a while ago, and that was about it. Like that was the extent of our like extra things that we could have to play within Master Duel. And in all honesty, like I think the XYZ event and then like the following events, the Synchro and the Fusion one, I I genuinely think those should be defaults for the game. Like those should just be alternative formats that we have in the game to play at its base point. Because like the game when you launch Master Duel, you want to be able to not only just play ranked mode and feel like you're just like forced to play ranked mode because after a while of that, that's going to get a little bit tedious. And I don't know how other like more competitive-esque uh games do their structures with their competitive seasons, but for me, like the way I would structure it is that you have the competitive ladder that you can do, but you also have plenty of other like deviations of game modes that you can also play that would still be fun and can still get you rewards or level ups or whatever you want to say that are still incentivizing you to play the game. It's just something different to deviate your time towards rather than only going towards grinding in the competitive ladder. I guess the best like equivalent I could give to that is like Call of Duty. Like Call of like my the one game I'm thinking of specifically is Black Ops 2, where you had the competitive ranking system, but you also had just like base Call of Duty like gameplay modes. You had the team deathmatch, the free for all that kind of stuff, you know, and that works perfectly fine because there's plenty of different deviations you can have in the play style. Um, and with Master Duel, I think that's something that we definitely need is some kind of deviations. That's why I think those alternative formats specifically would be interesting to see in there, but also like it's like to me those are very fun alternative formats that you can put towards the game as well. But even besides that, just like something something else for the game because there's just no incentive for this game right now. And that's the big thing that sucks about it. Like I just want there to be something big for us for this game that we can just like in a way it can feel like we could just play this game for an infinite amount of hours and still have fun. And don't get me wrong, again, like I was saying, you can still definitely enjoy the game. You still definitely have fun with the game. There's still definitely a lot to go into the game that is amazing and great and all overall still enjoyable. Like the game is still enjoyable, don't get me wrong, but like just the way it is right now, like obviously we've highlighted all the flaws at this point about it being a best of one, the specific card pool, yada yada yada. Everyone's discussed that to death. But like if we have these like alternative ways to play and other things that we can do to deviate our time on it, those flaws still going to be there, don't get me wrong. It doesn't take away from them, but it makes it to where it's a little bit more bearable and a little bit more, where it's like you can just brush off these kind of things where it's like, it's a best of one and my opponent like opened extremely, extremely well. I don't really have a way to do anything because it's a best of one format, but hey, you know, it is what it is. That's just kind of how Master Duel's set up. I can, focus on this other game mode if I just like get tired of doing one specific game mode or doing this, that, and the other. And to me, just in general, like that would be so much better for us right now because I don't know how else to say that it's just getting boring. Like that's basically what it is. And in all honesty, like it's gonna kill the longevity of it already because besides the people that have just like completely like went like no life and just like went non-stop into Master Duel as soon as it came out. Like there's people like me who have, done it slowly and gradually through time and it's still getting to that stagnation. And that is something I just want to try to avoid. I really genuinely hope that we can find a way to get around that sooner rather than later. I don't know what it's going to take necessarily. I don't know what Konami's going to introduce, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. But whatever they're going to do, I hope they do it soon, and I hope they do it efficiently. Okay, so I think that'll end off our Master Duel part of the discussion. The next thing that I was wanting to talk about was the most recent I can't speak, Remote Duel YCS. And a couple interesting things that came out of there. First big thing I want to mention, shoutouts to Pac. I mean, that man is just crazy with the things that he does and that he's been doing like throughout his short tenure as a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, and I love it so much. He used DDD to get a successful top 8 finish, and I give a bunch of credit where credit is due. That is amazing, and I love it. Especially because to me, DDD like it was one of the it's one of the decks like I've always seen that has like such the highest potential, but it just feels like people never really gave it the light of day. Like even past like where Zodiac was, like they just never gave it the time of day, and that can also be specifically because of how the game played out, but also just in general, there's just been so many different things that have made it to where like uh DDD hasn't really been able to be as successful or shine as bright as it could until now. I definitely think the wave of support has helped it. The Link Monster and the most recent stuff with the new Trap card, the new Xyz, the new Field Spell, and stuff like that. But also, it really helps as well whenever you have like a really, really good and um, knowledgeable player like Pack that takes the deck and understands it to a good degree and is able to put their knowledge and put their like skill into the deck, not only with deck building but also playing the deck in general, and just being able to use use that all together to be able to do something with a deck that no one, for the most part, was probably expecting. And, I really hope it, starts surfacing a little bit more in comparison to what it was before. But, if it is just a small glimmer in like the light of like Yu-Gi-Oh's entire history, I still give credit where credit is due. That's my first big thing I want to talk about. Next big thing was just all the random mishmash decks that, oh man, I just love to see. All those just like random 60 card mash piles are just so cool and so interesting to see. And it just feels like you have so many different ways that you can make them, but also just like having so many like different lines that are possible within them. Like I'm pretty sure there's so much more that can be explored with each of those decks and each of those engines. But even besides that, I feel like there's even like more optimal ways to play those decks that people just maybe aren't even thinking of. For example, for me specifically, I don't think the Punk engine is too like advantageous in those type of decks, but people still play that engine, and that could be like a discussion point for um for going into like talking about those kind of decks. And just in general, like looking at the overall play style, it feels like there could be like so many different like ideas for tech options within the main deck, within the extra deck, maybe even within the side deck as well, that it's just so interesting to see that these type of decks are successful. And it really does go to show that like you don't need just like a specific archetype. Like you really can find success if you have like the understanding enough to put like a good pile of cards into action. And that is the like big thing I really appreciate about those decks, because it really shows that there's still a lot of creativity that goes into not only um like current deck building, but also just understanding of the power level of these type of these cards, these interactions, these specific engines, archetypes, whatever it is. And the only other thing I want to mention about that is I just love Konami's like naming scheme for these decks. Like most people have been abbreviating it based, which like that abbreviation technically doesn't work because it's not the Brave engine, it's the Adventure engine, but you know, whatever with that. But like you can like with Konami's naming scheme, y oh man, they for some reason just do not like when people name their own decks, so they name them for them. And they only name them off of archetypes. So all you'll see is like Destiny Hero, Punk, Adventure, Rose Dragon, Sword Soul, for example. Like, oh man, what a mouthful. Like I'm pretty like something like Bird Up. Like, I can understand why they would put, like, Lyrilu's Tri-Brigade, because that is technically what the name of the deck is. But at the same time, like, Bird Up just, like, it's just a fun little name that the community came up with. So it's like, why can't we just use these names, utilize these names in those ways? And it's really funny just to see Konami be avoidant towards those kind of things. Because I'm pretty sure, like any other major card game that I can think of has that kind of like naming scheme to them. It'd be very interesting to see if like there is like an extremely popular one that doesn't. But like regardless, it's still just like, why take away that like creative aspect? I just don't understand that. But besides all that aside, like I was saying, I will sing the praises all day of those people that are bringing those crazy mishmash piles together, and I'm very, very glad to see it was the winning deck of that event, and that there could still be like even more to improve uh upon that specific pile of cards, because I saw the deck profile and I'm pretty sure the guy like multiple times said that he was unsure about this engine. He did not really like this engine. He thinks that this after playing the event, that this should be this, and these cards should be here, shouldn't be here. That's great, and that all that's great to look over and like think about, and like theory craft and all that good stuff. I could sing the praises for that kind of stuff forever. But um, last thing I wanted to really talk about with it was surrounding the controversy that came out of it, and the controversy I'm talking about, for anyone that might not know exactly what happened, is there's a situation that came up between two players that one player had to read uh wanted to read one of the cards that their opponent had, but they had to read that card multiple times, and because of that, time was called. The person that was reading the card was up in life, and they won the match. And a lot of people just got very upset by it because they thought it was a very unsportsmanlike thing to do in that situation. And I wanted to talk about that specifically because I think it has some interesting talking points surrounding it. So, the first thing in regards to that is that if it was done intentionally, I do think that was kind of egregious. I don't think that you should be doing that kind of thing to try to just get a win. It's like regardless of if you think like it's justified or not, it's what does that it goes back to like what I was talking about with the soft cheating in the previous episodes. Like, what does that prove to anyone? Like that doesn't prove anything to me that you like stalled out by reading your opponent's card like 3 different times. But a lot of people have been saying that the person that did it isn't really like a bad person or anything, and I'm not gonna get into that specific side of it because to me that's it's either you think he did wrong on his opponent or you don't think he did wrong. And that's kind of really it to it. And you can kind of go back and forth on that, but I'm not going to get into that whole can of worms. Main thing I wanted to talk about was in regards to the time rules, and with like reading cards and understanding cards in general. And I think this whole example and multiple others that have been on camera and off camera are just prime examples as to why the time rules the way they are is just so fundamentally flawed, and I just really don't like it. Now, before I get into what I'm going to say, I do want to preface I understand. I understand why Konami put these rules into place and why they want the people that are working at these events to be able to go home earlier, to be able to, do not have to spend so much time and effort in these events specifically. Um, and everything just in general with being being more efficient for the employers of these events. I get that. I'm perfectly fine with that. And I understand that if I was an employer like constantly at these events and throughout my time like I would never like be able to go home because all these events and would go into like time like multiple times and like keep going overtime and like multiple instances and like multiple rounds throughout the same day. Like I get it. I could 100% understand that if that was the case. And I like overall I understand that. But it like it may be good for Konami and the employer and the employees, but it really takes away from the players. And that it like you need to have like a rule set that works not only for the employers but also for the players, because if you don't have a good enough balance for that, then either the players feel cheated out, the employees feel cheated out, and or both of them feel cheated out in some way, and then it just turns into an entire big mess. And that's kind of what the time rules feel like on the player end of the spectrum. Like, I can't tell you how many times, just personally, that it has happened to where I've gone into time and, like, I was either up in life or down in life, and, like, it was just abysmal. Like, I could have either won, my opponent could have won, like, it was either it was a either or situation depending on what was happening, or like I knew guaranteed that I could win the game, potentially even just on the following turn, but I didn't get a following turn because of the way the time rules are. And I get it, like eventually there has to be a final turn in the game if there is going to be some kind of time rule in general. But overall, like for me specifically, like I don't know how other people see this, but like it's just the way it is right now. It just doesn't encourage like good player to player interaction. And that to me is the most egregious part of them. Like, you know, whatever regulations you set in place for the tournament, whatever. I get it. It works on paper, egregious in practice. like just besides my own anecdotal evidence, like this is a prime example of it. Like regardless of what you think the intentions of the people are, like that exact situation could happen in a genuine case because I've had that situation happen. I've had that exact situation happen where I've had to read a card multiple times. And because of that, because we were low in time, because we like couldn't advance anything because I was just not understanding how the card was working, my opponent lost because I was up in life. And that was it. Like that was the end of it. And it was all specifically because I couldn't understand a card. Now you could say in those instances, well, you could have a time extension or something like that, but like I would rather just say like why not just give a more balanced rule set to these games? And like I get it, like to where it's like if we gave players turns in some way, shape, or form, there could still be long drawn out turns because people could just sit there and think for 10,000 years or whatever it is. Excuse me. But for me, like I feel like if it goes into a time situation, like that's when you try to like that's when the like focus down should be like the big like slamming down of like okay, you can't take too long to do a turn, you can't take too long to do this, that, and the other. And that's when like things should specifically be like egregiously cracked down on if you are like into time and like you're doing and like you're still playing in some way, like if we had turns. But like even besides that, like I think if we had like turns in some way, shape, or form, like if it's just one turn back and forth, if like that is so much simpler and so much better for both players because now both players have an opportunity to either close out the game or essentially be up in life points or whatever it is. Um, and be able to do it like that. Now, it would still get into that whole like situation of like one player is up in life points or like potentially um and maybe that's a little bit egregious as well, but it would be to me that would be 10 times better than just having it to where it is now where it's just current phase and end the game or after that current phase is over end the game. You know, like that just promotes to me that just promotes like disingenuous gameplay because now people are playing not for like the game when it gets close to time. People at that point are playing for uh like are playing for the clock essentially. They're just like, "Oh, how much like chip damage, burn damage can I do before like I pass my turn and my opponent takes their turn and like, how long can I think in compare like whenever they activate a card or do an action to where like I don't need to worry about like time anymore because, I'm going to be up in life points and it's going to be fine." Like I know not everyone's going to think that or do that, but that's just kind of what it like deviates towards as soon as you get close to time. Like even like the most like charismatic, nice, or whatever word you want to use, like player is still gonna feel that pressure if they're in like a high end situation or sometimes even at locals. If it's a game that's like really really close and they're like really really like uh in that situation maybe they're like wanting to win it out and see um what their deck can do or whatever it is like you know they can't really have that focus anymore because now they have to focus on time. And even if it's not the focus of how much chip or burn damage can I do to put myself up in time, it's it can also just go on the exact opposite direction of just like, okay, how fast can I play to make sure my opponent like is able to like play their turn that way. It doesn't seem like I'm slow playing or I'm stalling or whatever it is. Like, it's just not promoting a healthy dynamic. And then like if that kind of situation does happen, then players are just like, if it happens to a player, it's happened to me plenty of times, and like I've been kind of like not in the best mood because of it. But like in general, even to the like player that wins it out, like to them it probably doesn't feel exactly like a definitive win. It's just like, okay, like cool, I was up in life points, and like my opponent couldn't really do anything to like to like win the game at all or even try to win the game. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Um, it just in general, like that that situation is a good example of it, but like also just in general, like the time rules are just so egregious in the way that they are, and especially like high level play like that. Like I would think that if it's the top cut of a YCS, the like besides Worlds, the highest level, yeah, the highest level um championship that you can have. And you know, with that, like you should simply be able to like have a different rule set for it. Like I'm fine with that. Like if it's like if you want to do it that way, I don't care. Like I'm like if I'm in Top Cut and if I'm or if I'm even if I'm just watching someone in Top Cut, like that would be something that I would kind of expect there to be like some slight differences in the way it is, like still the same playing ground, same playing field and everything like that, but like, a difference of like the way the rules play out with the time rules or something like that. I don't know. Just in general, it's just very irritating in a lot of ways to not only see that kind of thing happen, but also see people like um very like get in those kind of situations and have these kind of situations have to manifest because of the way Konami has it. And while I did say that like maybe the one turn each thing could be a solution, like there's still like plenty of problems with just even that kind of solution. There's plenty of problems with many other different solutions that people have tried to have for that exact issue. And I don't think Konami did it good for their employees, but again, it's bad for the player standpoint, and for the player's standpoint, that should also be an important factor to it. I feel for any of the like Konami employees that have had to pull in like maybe like 12 plus hours just being at a Yu-Gi-Oh event at the same time, like I don't think you should be jeopardizing the players like a view of the quality of the game specifically because of these issues. There should be like other ways that you can address it, or if that's like the biggest way that you can address it, there should be a balance to it. And if that balance doesn't work, maybe work on some adjustments from there. But that is everything mainly that I wanted to discuss on the YCS topic. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about for this episode was in regards to our current Yu-Gi-Oh products and how they have kind of been lacking more recently in comparison to stuff we have had previously. And I just wanted to have a general discussion about it. So, first off, um, my main takeaway from like more current Yu-Gi-Oh product has been that it has been very lacking in terms of like things to look forward to, and there could be a lot of reasons for that, but like, well, I'm gonna go piece by piece here to get my thoughts a little more like structured and and have you all see what I'm trying to say here. So first off, let's talk about core sets, or yeah, core booster sets that we have. And core booster sets, like it's been so lacking more recently because there's been like nothing really that has been like major in comparison to um sort of things that we've had before. And I get it. When it comes to like any Yu-Gi-Oh product, there's going to be hits and misses. Not every card in every set is going to be utilized in some way, shape, or form. And that's fine. I get that. That makes perfect sense. But at the same time, like there's such a lack of things to look forward to and things that are interesting in sets to make these sets like worthwhile, like looking into or getting the cards or whatever it is within the sets. And that can be kind of disappointing because that makes it to where there's just like a lack of interest not only within like the current game at the time, but also just like reoccurring throughout Yu-Gi-Oh in general. Like if there's nothing interesting there being put in place for you, there's not really a big incentive to be wanting to play the game and keeping up with it. And that's not to say that there hasn't been anything interesting or good that has come out. We've had, I would say, like Burst of Destiny was the best set of 2021, but like even besides that, I'm not talking just in general of like decks that have been good. I'm talking about like the quality of the sets in general. And like let's say for example, Lightning Overdrive and Dawn of Majesty. Those two sets, I would say like the Utopia stuff is like okay and like decent enough for what it is, but at the same time, like there's a lack of like a good balance between that like the Utopia with the casual audience and then like something competitive to grasp at within that set, but also like with Dawn of Majesty and with some other sets that we've had throughout the years so far. And that's like it's really disappointing because there's just nothing to look for in those sets, and when there is, like even when there's something to look forward to in terms of like a cool interesting new card, it is a high rarity um chase card at that point, and it just becomes expensive on the secondary market. I understand that that's not a Konami thing, it's just how it is, but still, like they do that deliberately to try to put like more incentive towards the product, but at the same time it just makes it worse for everyone because there's not a big reason to open for the product to be opened in the first place. Then you put in like one or two good cards in the set that might help drive up the sales of it or whatever it is, and you know it's just kind of playing a catch 22 because you can you're not going to get those a majority of the time. If you open the set constantly, you're mainly going to be getting the like average, okay, maybe kind of cool cards here and there, and then so once in a while it's going to be the really high end chase cards. And that structure just in general, I really don't like that. Like they did that with Diviner of the Herald. They did that with Pot of Prosperity. Um, and just like in general, with cards like that are being put into the game that are cool, interesting, and have capabilities of being used in some way, putting them at the higher end slots and then just having the rest of the set like not do well because there is just like nothing going on with it It really sucks. And a big reason, like I would say that there's not a lot of going on with current sets, is mainly because there's a lot of cards that are just pack filler. And I get it. Like I was saying a little earlier, I can understand if every card in Yu-Gi-Oh is not going to be used. There's plenty of cards even back in the day when the card pool was infinitely smaller that wasn't used, and that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to like an overall general basis of your cards and your card design, you should like make it to where these cards can be used in some way, shape, or form. Like for me, you it's not about it's not about the fact of like good or bad in terms of a metagame. It's the fact that you would want to look at a card and think, that's interesting enough for me to consider it in some way, shape, or form in something. That to me helps more well-rounded card pool in the game in general, and that's not something that Konami does for the most part. Like you'll look at random cards that you'll like pull from booster sets, and some of them like is just like random support cards that might be good or bad, and that just is what it is. But then the cards that aren't archetypal or aren't focused towards anything specifically, like there's a couple interesting things here and there in regards to those kind of cards, but some of them are just absolutely like there's no point to them. You can't properly utilize them. They're just like infinitely better options for them, and some of them like they sound cool on paper, but then you think about them practically and it's just like, wait a minute, why would they even print these kind of cards or print this card or whatever it is? And that just keeps happening constantly and constantly. And all of that just like culminates into like really, really like mediocre sets. And then that has been going on more recently for a longer stretch of time than I I than that I would like. But even besides like the lower end stuff with everything, there's even just problems on the higher end because some sets, like for example Burst of Destiny, I think Burst of Destiny was the best set of 2021, but the issue with that set is that it is so top heavy. There's like, what is it? It's like 7 or 8 secret rares that you want out of the set, but obviously, you only get 2 secret rares per box. So, you know, you're not getting anywhere close to what you would want with those. And then even at that point, like, you could get the like secret rares that aren't really as sought after for one, but for two, even if you do get like a more sought after secret rare, it could possibly not even be the one that you want. And even besides that, just like it being so top heavy makes it so difficult for that set to have a good balance within it as well. Um like the Fluanderese deck is kind of scattered here and there, and I think that is a good balance. Like there's super rares for the set. There was the map was the ultra rare, and then you had the secret rare with M Pen and Snell, but you technically only needed a M Pen, and even then, like uh, even between that that's not as egregious as say with the Sword Soul half of stuff, where it was Mo Yi, Ecclesia, the Synchro, and I think there was something else, but I'm blanking on it. Um, But even then, like you had like a whole bunch of higher end things in there, and not only that, like the Long Yun was ultra, the search spell ultra, just all higher end things, so you can't really like have a good spread of that either. And even besides that, you had the King of Heavenly Prison, you had Small World, which are both secret rares, which, like, granted, I mean, it's fair enough that, like, you could see a card like that at the higher end, but it just makes it worse and more egregious for the set in general because it's just everything's so top heavy in that set, and you just have, like, nothing at the lower end or nothing, like, nothing extreme at the lower end. And oh man, just in general, like I'm not saying like all the like core booster sets have been bad and that there haven't been good things within them or good things that have come out of them. But they're like the way Konami models them is just it hasn't been very structured well. And I mean, we've kind of seen it, like, even, like, leading up to it with, like, some sets where it would have, like, one or two couple chase cards or, nothing really, like, extremely impactful in the set. And then, those one or two chase cards are just, like, the highest end of the value for the set, and then they're like carrying the entire booster box on their back. And it's become even more egregious now because there's been like little incentive towards these more recent box sets to even like want to like get a pack of it or like even like want to have any incentive towards like the Yu-Gi-Oh product in general besides like maybe getting a Lost Star promotion. And that's really unfortunate because, like, in general, you shouldn't be buying product if you're looking for a specific, like, if you're looking for, like, really any specific card, but, like, in general, if it's, like, a higher end card, it's probably just better to use your money for, like, secondary market-based stuff. And that's, if you don't want to, that's up to you, but at the same time, it's just a better use for the money in that sense. But even then, like, but regardless of that whole aspect of it, like there should still be like a innate like positive to the set where like even if you're not like getting anything extremely like higher end out of the set, that you can still look forward to something within it. Like there's something cool you can look at within the set. There's something interesting within it, and like overall, it just doesn't feel like a waste of time. Like obviously, getting those higher end things are gonna happen, and it's gonna feel really good when that kind of thing happens. But like, you shouldn't be like walking away from like opening a couple booster packs and it all being like super rares in it and saying, well, I guess I just like you know wasted my time, wasted my money, whatever it is, like, and that's just overall the general feeling that like all sets have been having, but also just like extremely with the core booster sets. And moving into talking about like other sets, reprint sets have been like extremely lacking more recently. And I don't know what Konami is doing with them anymore. Like the best ones that we've had is the maximum gold sets, and that's specifically because of the card pool around it. I personally like the gold rarity foiling that they have for it, but at the same time, like I don't like the warping of cards, and I do understand if people don't like the look of them either. It makes I can understand that, but to me, I like the aesthetic of it and everything. But regardless of all that, though, The sets specifically have been spot on, and I'm glad for that. They are very, very good examples of reprint sets and how they should be structured. And especially, like, with the maximum gold model, that's just kind of how they've always been. But, like, other reprint sets should be like that too. The Brothers of Legend set that we just got more recently, it's not 100% horrible, but at the same time, it is a very, very good example of what I'm talking about here, where it's like you only have like maybe one or two like worthwhile things that you're looking forward to within the set as reprints or chase cards or whatever it is, and the rest of the set just doesn't really mean anything. And to me, that's extremely egregious as well because that set specifically set such a high bar whenever we first got like the first uh, box set of that announced. Like, I literally remember people when the first Battles of Legends set was announced thought it was fake, thought it was an April Fool's joke because it was literally like almost too good to be true at the time. Like at the time, we didn't even have that like kind of concept of that kind of reprint set coming out at all. But even then, like just the cards in the set were just absolutely like outstanding as to like what they were focusing on in reprint sections, and that was really, really good to see. And it wasn't just like on the higher end where it was like the secret rares. There was good secret rares as well, but there was also things to look forward to within like the ultra rare slots or lower slots. Like that was where I got my ultra rare sets of anti-spell fragrance. And I've still like had that set of anti-spell, and I'm glad for that set coming out because it had beyond that card specifically, there was still like really good reprints throughout that entire set. And I was very happy for that. But literally, I wouldn't say like almost immediately, but like the second set was kind of meh in comparison to the first one, but the second set, like in general, was like you could probably say it's at least a little bit above like what current like Brothers of Legend is. Maybe you could go back and forth specifically, but still, like especially in comparison to the first one, like Brothers of Legend stands no chance in terms of comparison. Like it's night and day. And I'm not saying like every reprint set has to reprint like everything in it, but it needs to be reprinting like good stuff, not only in the higher end slots. Like that seems to be like a common theme throughout Konami's like standpoint of like reprinting stuff or putting stuff in sets. Like they just want to put it at the higher end slots. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with higher end chase cards. That's just kind of how um card booster sets are made. But at the same time, you need incentive throughout a set besides just the higher end things in the set. That is the most important thing to it. Um, and like just in general, reprint sets have been lacking too. The like legendary duelist sets, like box sets that where you get the dice and like the promotional card, like they're not horrible. Like I do kind of like them, but at the same time, they're just oh man, they just feel so bad in comparison. Like they're $15 for essentially just two packs and just a dice. And that's really it. Like there's a promotional card too, but like regardless of that, like it's not anything like extremely incentivizing for you to buy that stuff at all. Besides like at the time like the Kaiba Corp dice, and that's about it. And it goes back to that whole idea of what Konami has been doing. It's just like a couple of cool things in a set that try to promote the set and bolster it up, but then like the entire rest of the set is like kind of meaningless. I think the Legendary Duelist Season 2 one was a little bit better in terms of what it was trying to do. Uh, what going off of the first one, but at the same time, like it's still just like really, really egregious in terms of like what it could be doing. I do like the idea of like reprinting like certain cards in a secret rare slot, but also as a promotional card. I do like that concept a lot, but it needs to be it that whole thing needs to be thought out more. And like just in general, like reprint sets have also been lacking, and then we move on into side sets. Like side sets, I think are the most egregious of this entire discussion because I have no idea what Konami is trying to do with the side sets. The most recent side sets are just absolutely bewildering in terms of like trying to understand what Konami is doing. So first off, we have side sets where it's like a whole bunch of commons and a rare, and then potentially a super or potentially an ultra. And then we have side sets where it's like rares with a guaranteed holo, and then potentially an ultra as that holo as well. In those sets, the standard ratio is 3 ultras per set, and there's like 10 like some I think there's like way probably more than 10. There's like a whole bunch of ultras to the set. Some like again, higher end cards, very good cards that are slotted into those sets, and then you're just basically like, oh man, those sets feel even worse for like if anyone wanted to buy those because like I do not get what they are doing with that model in general. First of all, if you're gonna put that kind of model out there, why can't you just have one consistent like way that you're printing it? If it's gonna be like all commons, and if I don't care if it's just like all commons and a rare even like if that's gonna be your model, just stick to that. Don't give us like 12 like two different models. I was gonna say like 12,000 different ones, but like I guess there's only two. But regardless, like just don't give us a whole bunch these two different models. See, I try to do it again, but don't give us these models and just not have like any coherence with it. Like just give us like rares in a holo or commons in a holo or whatever you're going to do. Just do that consistently. And like don't make these side sets just so weird each time that they come out and like having the model just feel like it flip-flops on the dime. Like I just don't understand what the whole entire concept is with the side sets in general. It's just so baffling as to what they are trying to do with them, and especially with the ratios. Like, I get it. Like, you don't want to be, like, you want it, again, to have that chase incentive. But at the same time, like, 3 ultras to a box? Like, oh, what is it? It's 24 to a booster set, right? You can't, yeah, you can't even, like, give us at least, like, 1/4 of the box is ultra rares, and then like maybe at that point like put the collector's rare like rarity lower. Um, oh man, it's just it's so egregious. I don't know what they are doing with these kind of sets. Like in general, it's just so crazy. I do get that it's like that the two models are different because it's like Legendary Duelist and like the other one's a side set specifically for like new for like the three different archetype thing. But oh man, it's still just so it doesn't make sense. It just just stick all those kind of side sets because it's the same model. Like it has it has a couple of like the lower end cards, and then it has like a rare or a hollow in whichever like side set you're talking about. So just have that consistently be for like all side sets. I would rather it be the rare and the hollow. In all honesty, I really wish it was just like that for like those kind of side sets. That to me makes the most sense. And like I would want them to fix on the ultra rare like ratios as well, but still just have like some consistency in that at least. Oh man, just in general, it's so baffling to see that. And everything just with more recently in the more recent years, I kind of noticed it a little bit with like early Link era stuff as well, but like it wasn't as egregious either with like early Link era stuff. It was like midway to like late end Link era stuff moving into more modern day things where it was like a lot of where you could like notice this like weird like mix and like cluster of things that just um it's just it feels like Konami's just been so off the ball and just doesn't know what they're doing. And that's not even to mention like some of the other things that they have been doing throughout time with products in general, like no promotional cards in any way, shape, or form besides the Lost Art. And then I guess if you want to count the legendary Duelist cards, like sure, but like still, like there's been a lack of promotional stuff with within the Megatins even. Like the Megatins were supposed to be that like year encompassing thing and like the biggest boon of like the biggest and most hyped up product of the year because it's reprinting a whole bunch of cool stuff that people might have missed out on, and it's having a lot of incentive behind it, and there's just cool things in general with it. And it didn't even need to have like it didn't technically it didn't need to have promotional stuff, but those kind of tins have always had like some kind of promotional thing to it. And just completely taking that away, putting the like what would be the promotional stuff within the set itself, like sure it gives that set a little bit of like longevity to it, I guess, but it doesn't help in general. And that's what really like it just really sucks. Like even the 2019 model where it was like it wasn't even guaranteed, but it was like the Kazuki Takahashi like new cards. It was the reprints of the alternate arts for the Egyptian god cards with his signature, and it had the three um like meta staple cards with Nibiru, Dark Ruler, and Dimensional Shifter. And each of those cards have come up throughout their time from that point of their initial printing to now. Like D Shifter is the one that has like probably been the latest to like join into the party because it didn't really have a home for a lot of time, but like now it kind of does with the Fluanderese deck. And even besides that, there's going to be things in the future that D Shifter's going to easily be able to like be incorporated into. And oh man, just in general, like just even that model and just promotionals in general, like it would help out so much. It doesn't even have to be anything like over the top or crazy. Like we had like two really good ones for sure, but we had like Ghost Ogre and Pot of Desires in one of the tens. That in itself is perfectly fine. If like just two good slash decent cards that needed reprints that a lot of people would be clamoring for good generic staples that can be used in any deck. That's what we need. Like that would help out so much. That would like make it to where these problems aren't really being problems anymore. And like going on to the idea of reprints, like sure we have structure decks, but even then Konami's like usurping all these structure decks and good potential reprint opportunities for no reason. Like, I guess there is a sort of a reason with COVID and stuff, but like, if you can print out all these like massive box set releases, you can find a way to print out some structure deck stuff. Like, even if it's a lower supply and quantity, you can still do it. And they're just choosing not to. Like, they got rid of the Dragoonity structure deck. They got rid. I'm pretty sure they're gonna get rid of the Agent one. They got rid of the Utopia one. They put that stuff in Lightning Overdrive, and more recently in the Brothers of Legend set. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get why they're taking those potential, like, good structure deck reprints and like good structure deck opportunities away, because those are really good opportunities to put these needed cards into them. Like, I just don't get it in general. It's so crazy to see, because there's just feels like there's just such a mismanagement and cluster, like I was mentioning earlier, of not understanding like what they need to do with the game currently. And I get it. Like more recently because of everything that's been happening, like that's fully understandable, but I would think like after almost 2 years into this kind of like way that we're doing things, that we would have some kind of like better structure towards everything. Like we can't even have like events be back up and running because of like whatever reason. It might be because of sickness and stuff, but I honestly think that there's also a combination there of like Konami just being lazy and not really wanting to like put something into motion. I wouldn't know why, but at the same time, like, they've been sitting back for so long now and they just really haven't pushed for anything. Like that's my worry with what's gonna happen with Master Duel. But like just in general, it feels like Konami has just been laying back and just kind of like going with the flow with everything, and just kind of like not really putting in an insane not even an insane amount of effort, but like more effort in comparison to what they are doing now. Like literally not even like a couple years ago, they were putting in more effort with like the examples that I was giving with like the Battles of Legends set, the Megatins. Like even if it's a Megatin with a non like it's promotional cards that aren't confirmed to us. Like it wasn't confirmed that a set like that we were gonna pull Nibiru or Dark Ruler or whatever, but still there was a good incentive to get those promotional cards and to get the Megatins, because you're gonna get the promotional cards, the cool like anime based stuff, and then like the good meta staple, but also you're gonna have your packs that you're gonna potentially have good openings in with that too, and whatever chase cards you might need out of there. But like there was even core sets like felt like they had a little more incentive there, and there was some stuff that was lacking here and there, obviously, and maybe it wasn't always perfect. Maybe I'm kind of over exaggerating some of them, but still, it just there was some that felt like there was genuinely something that you could look forward to in those sets, and it just didn't feel like it was a waste of time. And like thinking back on those, like we even had like the special editions that helped us out with like promotional stuff as well. Like, there's just so much Konami is like taken away and like mismanaging and not understanding about what is needed that I could like talk all day about it. But it's just crazy to see. Um, I think, but I think you all get the point by now. But I would say that is everything that I would want to talk about with that. Alright, well, I hope you all enjoyed our discussions here today. Feel free to comment about anything in regards to them. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed, leave any feedback as well in the comments. Do all the typical good old YouTube things. And I will see you in the next video. Hope you all have a good day, night, or whatever you are having.